season, as well as we're going to go into the Thanksgiving Day slate of games. We'll preview all three of those games for Thanksgiving, as well as jumping into the preview for Black Friday, first of its kind. This upcoming Black Friday here, so we will do that as well. So without further ado, we have a lot to get to on this one. A lot of the times I like to just miss out on some of the games and don't really recap some of the games that don't matter too much. But right now in week 11, there's been a lot of games with a lot of implications going on. So I'm going to have to hit on a lot of these games. So buckle in. This is going to be kind of a long episode here. First, we're going to start with the Thursday Night Football game of week 11. That was the Bengals versus the Ravens. Man, this game ended up being way more morbid than we were expecting it to be. Obviously, we have been waiting all season for a good Thursday Night Football matchup, and we were very excited for this one. AFC North, just knockdown, drag out, juggernaut type football game here. Expecting the Bengals and the Ravens to just have a great showing, just have some fireworks on Thursday night, since all the other Thursday Night Football games have been pretty disappointing thus far, especially the week before's pretty ugly stuff. And then this one, unfortunately, did not live up to the hype. That mostly had to do with all the injuries that were sustained in this game. First, we start off with a Mark Andrews hip drop type tackle injury where he broke something in his ankle and he's going to be out for the season potentially. Saw a report where there's a chance he could come back if the Ravens go on a very late season run, postseason run there. But for the most part, he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season and probably much of the postseason. Depends on how far they get, obviously. And then right into that goes into a injury to Joe Burrow, which ends his season as well. He apparently popped some kind of ligament in his wrist throwing the football. There was speculation about whether or not he should have been put on the injury report pre-game here because there was a video circulating around of him getting off the team bus in Baltimore with a wrist wrap, some kind of weird mechanism on his wrist, and people were speculating things. The Cincinnati Bengals put out that video, then deleted it pretty quickly because people were, seeing that. They hawk-eyed that whole thing down with his wrist, and so there's a lot of people mad about wagers being put on that game because if they knew Joe Burrow was even potentially a little bit hurt, maybe they wouldn't put that much money on the Bengals to win the game or cover the spread, things of that nature. And obviously in this game, the Ravens ran away with the football game after Jake Browning had to enter the game as the starting quarterback for the rest of the game there. It looks like from reports, all the reports are saying that they're going to stick with Jake Browning for the rest of the season. So essentially, the Bengals look like they're going to fold the season, this early on. Unfortunately, it's got a lot of fantasy football implications for draft stock and things of that nature, depending on how many games the Bengals end up losing for the rest of the season. Just a lot of stuff going on in this game. Unfortunately, like I said, Joe Burrow out for the season, so that impacts a lot of things in the AFC. Takes out one contender, even though they weren't, directly back in the AFC in contention in general to make the playoffs and things of that nature. I just always view them like a team led by Joe Burrow is going to have a chance no matter what. He's proven it. They've slayed Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs before, so I feel like they would have had a chance to come back in and make a little bit of a run in the AFC. But their season's essentially over with their starting quarterback gone. The Ravens now move up into the 1 seed in the AFC based on some things that happened on Monday Night Football, which I will get to a little bit later. But yeah, Ravens looking like they're in the bird's eye view nest right now, just looking down at everybody else, and just they're an impressive team right now. I mean, even before the Joe Burrow injury happened, it felt like the Ravens were going to win this game regardless. It was at home in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson looked pretty solid in this game. Obviously, the Mark Andrews injury does hurt their chances of getting that or sustaining that 1 seed, I should say, in the AFC. But I think they're a good team. The run game's getting going. Obviously Odell gets a little bit banged up in this game as well with a shoulder injury. Logan Wilson, same guy that hurt Mark Andrews in this one, tackled him on that play as well. So people are a little bit speculative of him being a bit of a dirty player, but I don't know if that's the case or not. Maybe it's just happenstance. But either way, like I said, Ravens sitting atop the AFC right this second as we stay at around the Week 11, Week 12 portion of the season. Next game, we have Cowboys versus Panthers. Basically, the only reason I'm going to say anything about this is the Cowboys stay, winning against, bad football teams. That's just what they do right now. They just blow out the Panthers once again. I will say, Deron Bland, man, what what a player, what a guy, what a spot to just step up in, considering Trayvon Diggs goes down for the season with his torn ACL. He steps in. He now has 4 pick sixes on the season, which I think like ties a record or has the NFL record for that amount in a season, which is very impressive for a guy who was a late round draft pick a couple years ago, I believe, for the Cowboys, and stepped up in a huge way. And that is just a nice little addition for them. When, I mean, basically, I wouldn't expect Stephon Gilmore to probably be back next year. So you'll have Trevon Diggs and Deron Bland on each side there, and he's going to be there for a long time probably. And he just seems to be a very good player for them. That's pretty much the highlight of the Cowboys-Panthers game, was just, the Cowboys, basically beating up on bad teams once again. They win and they stay right there atop the NFC with everybody else vying for that number one spot in the NFC playoff picture. Next game, we have the Browns versus the Steelers, another AFC North just matchup that we thought was going to be awesome, and this one was it was boring, man. I mean, Dorian Thompson-Robinson gets the start for the Browns in this one, I should say. And Kenny Pickett, obviously, the starting quarterback for the Steelers, and both of them had a contest of who could basically just make the worst offense on the NFL Sunday. It was ugly. Obviously, both defenses are pretty solid, so that helps a lot. Obviously, the Browns defense is still cooking right now. They're doing a great job. The one big explosive play that happened was Jaylen Warren, who has just turned into a great football player, great running back for the Steelers. Nice little steal that they found. He's kind of like the Austin Eckler, where just a hidden gem in the draft process, and he comes in and he more or less, in my opinion, kind of steals the starting job from Najee Harris. Najee Harris has been decently effective as of late for that Steelers offense, but he's just not as explosive as Jaylen Warren is right now. And but that was just not enough to get the win against the Browns, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who barely ekes out a win there. He was emotional after the game, obviously, because it was a hard-fought win. It's an AFC North Division, matchup, and he was proud of himself, and he should be proud of himself, but it was not very pretty, and I would hope that things get a little bit better for them on the offensive side of the ball as the season progresses. They did sign Joe Flacco to the practice squad, probably going to activate him to the full 53-man roster. And we'll see if maybe he supplants DTR in that starting position in Cleveland, because I think he still has a little bit left in the tank. He did a pretty decent job. I think that was last year with the Jets for a few games here and there. So, he's not the best thing in the world. Obviously, he's been on the street all season long. So we'll see how that progresses. But Browns just keep winning, defense keeping them in games, and they're right there in the thick of things in the AFC as well. Next game, Lions versus Bears. Man, this game was way closer than a lot of people were anticipating. The Bears were up pretty much all game in this one. Jared Goff looked a little bit shaky. I think he had 3 interceptions in this game, and they were pretty much all ugly. None of them were tipped passes or miscommunications with the wide receiver. He was just throwing them to the Chicago defenders, and it put them in a tight spot. Chicago was up, like I said, pretty much all game, and then they just kind of completely blew it at the end of the game there. I don't know if that was a Chicago choke job or a Chicago tank job. Chicago fans probably are thinking about the former. They probably think, oh, it's us. It's the Chicago Bears. We're going to choke games away like this. This is just the way things happen for us. But I'm kind of more of the opinion that they probably just didn't really want to win this game, considering their draft position this upcoming offseason, where they're probably going to have 2 of the top 3, definitely 5, but maybe 3 positions in the draft. And so I don't blame them for potentially, mailing this one in if that's what the case was, or if they just choked it. It is what it is. It doesn't really matter. They're not really playing for anything this season anyways. So Detroit gets another big win. Unfortunately for me, I was cheering for the Bears in this one. I hated to see them choke this one away, considering they are one of the top contenders for trying to steal the 1 seed from my Philadelphia Eagles, and their schedule for the rest of the season is very easy compared to the Eagles' schedule. So scary scenes there. I was really hoping they would drop one of these easy games to one of these not so hot opponents, but they get the job done once again. You got to give them credit. They're winning games that they are supposed to win, even if it doesn't look very pretty, and that's the sign of a good football team. Next game, we have Texans versus Cardinals. Not a whole lot to say here, other than, CJ Stroud still playing very well. He did have his probably worst game of the season. He had 3 interceptions in this game alone, but still got the job done, still got the W. So that's just all that counts right now. They're still in the thick of things, still firmly in the mix in the AFC South. Right there behind the Jacksonville Jaguars, who got a big win, and that is the next game we will be talking about, Jaguars versus Titans. This game was a huge one for Trevor Lawrence and that offense in Jacksonville. They needed this bad. Trevor Lawrence needed this bad. He had, I think, a 4-touchdown game in this one. He came back hot. It's so funny to think about what this offense can be when it's clicking on all cylinders. And it's weird that this coincided with the fact that Zay Jones got back into the offense. It's like he's like the skeleton key that, like, as soon as he's inserted in there, everybody else starts playing better. It's like everybody goes back into their natural positions. Like, people are playing out of position whenever he's not slotted in there as one of the wide receivers. Because, I mean, Calvin really went crazy in this game. I would know because unfortunately, because of the absence of Zay Jones, Calvin really had to play a different position, a different spot on the field for him, and he was just not playing as well, was not getting as targeted as he was earlier on in the season when Zay Jones was in there. The injury happens, and Calvin is in a position where he's just unfamiliar, I guess, with the spot. And then Zay Jones gets inserted back in this game, and Calvin really goes crazy again. I unfortunately traded him in fantasy and then had to play against him this week, and got the full brunt of a 30-point outing from him, which is not fun. But Calvin Ridley and that offense are clicking once again. The defense for the Jags is pretty solid, have been all season. It was a matter of that Jaguars offense getting back into form, and that's what they look like they did in this one. So got a shout out to them. Doug Peterson fixing some things on offense, and they are atop the AFC South. So next game, Dolphins versus Raiders. Man, this one was crazy. Obviously, right off the bat, you get a touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill where he just outruns everybody, and he just looks like the fastest person on the planet, which may be the case, to be completely honest with you, and he's like over 30, which is just crazy to think about. But either way, that was pretty much the biggest offensive explosion thing that happened for the Dolphins, which we've been, very, expectant of more explosive plays from this Dolphins offense. One that was, scoring 70 points earlier on in the season, and now it looks like the strength of the Dolphins team is the defense. With Jalen Ramsey coming back and Xavier Howard being on the other side, their defense has really stepped up and is just playing great. Jalen Phillips is a great edge. Bradley Chubb, obviously a great edge. Christian Wilkins in the middle there. They have good linebackers and David Long. Javon Holland back there on the back end as well. But, man, the Dolphins defense is just so good. Jalen Ramsey is such a good ball hawk. He knows where to be, just timely, and he's got great ball skills just to snag some of those balls out of the air that Aiden O'Connell was throwing. And you got to give them credit for that. And basically, like I said, they're the strength of the Dolphins team right this second, as their offense looks to be struggling a little bit. I think people are starting to understand how that Dolphins offense is kind of working, where they're working their wide receivers into a specific spot and into space rather than like direct routes and things of that nature. And I think people are catching up to the Mike McDaniel scheme a little bit. We'll see if he can adjust and adapt as the season progresses. Another big game for them upcoming on Black Friday. I'll get to that later. But yeah, let's go on to the next game. Giants versus Commanders. Not a lot to say here. I just wanted to embarrass all Commanders fans if you're listening. The Giants and Tommy DeVito, Danny DeVito's cousin, not really, I just made that up. But either way, you guys lost to a quarterback that nobody's ever heard of. So congratulations on that. Commanders are a disaster, just as much as the Giants are a disaster, even though they just beat them. Just a crazy. The fact that the Giants have swept the Commanders on the season, and the Commanders have almost beat the Eagles twice this season in very close matchups. It just goes to show just how crazy division matchups go. So you can never count a team out. But both of those franchises are in a weird spot right now. They're going to have to make a lot of weird decisions going down, this off season. So. Just a weird game. Giants get the win. It doesn't really matter. They go to 3-8. It's just kind of ugly for them. So they're just making their draft position even worse than it is, which I kind of appreciate. I don't mind it at all. Let's just say that as an Eagles fan. Next game, 49ers versus Buccaneers. This one, Buccaneers were hanging in there. They had a chance at the end to kind of potentially get back in the game. And then the 49ers defense finally stepped up. The 49ers defense has been a little bit of the weak spot, not necessarily their pass rush that's good. Fred Warner and their, Dre Greenlaw, their linebacking core is good. But their secondary has been a little bit leaky as of late, and I think that could be something that comes back to haunt them as the season goes on. But what I will say is, man, that offense is clicking once again with all their weapons back. They're going to be a problem to stop when you got that run game going and you got all the explosive weapons, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel, all those guys. It's going to be hard to stop Brock Purdy. All he's got to do is go out there and facilitate like a point guard, and they will win a lot of the games remaining on their schedule, to be completely honest. So the Buccaneers didn't really have a lot for them. This was in San Fran. It was an uphill battle for the Buccaneers, who Baker Mayfield played pretty decent in this game. He had a chance to win this game. He's had a chance to win a lot of games in the last few minutes of games this season, and he's kind of came through within the Buccaneers defense, kind of throws it away at the end. So I feel a little bit bad for Baker Mayfield and the way he's been playing this season. A lot of people are going to probably blame him for some of these losses, but a lot of this stuff is just not on him right now. But yeah, 49ers get another big win. Stay, like I said, firmly in that mix in the NFC, atop the NFC like the Cowboys. And so, yeah, let's go into the next game. Bills versus Jets. Bills got a huge bounce back win. I should have known it was going to happen. I picked the Jets +7 in this game. Stupid on my part. Very dumb. It just is what it is. But yeah, Bills got a huge bounce back. I should have known that the Zach Wilson experiment was coming to an end here. He finally gets benched. Tim Boyle, I think is his name. Tim Boyle comes in, finally relieves him of his duties essentially, and he will be starting in the next game, Black Friday, against the Dolphins. So that's going to be interesting to watch and see what happens there. But yeah, it was time. Zach Wilson just has not been getting it done. The offense just hasn't scored on offense like pretty much at all since he's been the starter. And somehow the Eagles found a way to lose to that team. But I'm not even going to say anything about that. That's just bad juju considering what just happened on Monday night. But anyways, just Tim Boyle comes in, does his thing. It doesn't really matter. They're still losing. Bills are just waxing them. I should have known this was going to happen. The Bills are going to bounce back in a big way after a couple bad losses there. And so, Josh Allen, the Bills are coming to Philadelphia in this next game, and I am excited to see what's going to happen there. Bills get another big win, and the Jets finally bench, Wilson, and it's just a little bit too late, guys. You should have done this a while ago just to see what you got in some of your backup guys, or even try to bring in some veterans like a Joe Flacco, who the Browns brought in. That would have been a better idea than what has transpired since, but it is what it is. I'm not a Jets fan, so I can't feel but too bad, but it is what it is. Rams versus Seahawks. This one was very interesting. This is now the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams, have swept the Seahawks on the season. They beat them in week 1. They just beat them this past week. This was a comeback effort by the Rams here. Seahawks blew a 16-7 lead. I think that was in the fourth quarter itself. And, man, it's just the Seahawks. I don't know what's going on with them, man. Obviously, Geno Smith gets a little banged up in this game, gets his throwing arm hit, and I think it's kind of an elbow Brock Purdy-esque type injury, but then he comes back in the game for the final possession. He puts them in position to get a field goal try, but then there was some miscommunication, and they had to basically settle for a 55-yard field goal, and Jason Myers just misses it, and that's all she wrote. The Rams win the football game after a comeback effort from Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua hooking up on a couple of plays to get them in position to win. And the Rams get it done. The Rams are still frisky, especially with Matthew Stafford in there. You can't sleep on them. Obviously, there was that time where Brett Rippon was in there, and that was just an ugly time for the Rams on offense. But when Matthew Stafford's in there, even with a hurt thumb, he is a scrapper. He's going to do everything he can to win a football game, and that's what he did in this one. Seahawks reeling a little bit here, and they have tough remaining schedule. They have the 49ers a couple times. They have the Eagles and I think the Cowboys as well left on their schedule. So if they want to stay in contention in the NFC and still get a wild card, they're going to have to really hunker down and get their offense together. Their defense has been playing pretty decent as of late, so can't really complain about them too much. But the Geno Smith and that offense have just been a little bit off kilter for whatever reason, and now that he's hurt, things are not pointing in the right direction for them. Next game, Broncos versus Vikings. Don't look now, but the Broncos are 500, which is just something I would have never thought was the case when the season first started, when they're getting destroyed 70-20 or whatever against the Dolphins early on in the season, and they just look completely out of sorts. The defense looked like one of the worst in all of football. Since then, Vance Joseph has gotten that defense back into a respectable squad. And Sean Payton has got Russell Wilson playing pretty decent football. Cortland Sutton has scored in like every single game this season that he's played in. So if you have him in fantasy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But man, it's just a crazy thing. I mean, Javonte Williams is playing pretty good right now. The Dolphins, or not Dolphins, the Denver offense has been pretty decent the last few weeks. Not too shabby. They're still making some mistakes here and there, but that's just going to happen with Russell Wilson right now. He's just so up and down. He's just Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde pretty much every other week. But the defense, like I said, has really settled in and just played so much better. And they beat this Vikings team who has been on a heater with Josh Dobbs playing very well. And this one, they just didn't have enough. Vikings are still in it. They are still above 500, and now the Broncos are just at 500. This is going to be very interesting for both of these teams going forward. If one of these two can slip into their playoff picture, that would be really crazy considering what transpired earlier on in the season for both of these squads. Next game, we have the Eagles versus Chiefs. This was Monday Night Football. Obviously, this happened last night. I'm recording this on a Tuesday. But man, wow, what a game. There's a lot of things I could say about this one. It was an ugly win, but a win is a win. I mean, that's just what good teams do, is when everything is not really going your way, not everything looks pretty, you can still find a way to win, especially on the road in Arrowhead against Patrick Mahomes, against Andy Reid coming off of a bye. A lot of things going against the Eagles in this game, and the Eagles still come out with a victory. Crazy circumstances. First thing I kind of want to get off my chest a little bit is, I'm going to be completely honest, I'm going to start talking about the Super Bowl a little bit. A lot of people are saying, the Eagles pass rush just couldn't get there because the Chiefs O-line was so good in the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. The field was not part of, the issue. Dude, that field 100% affected the Super Bowl, just abilities of the Eagles pass rush. They were slipping all around, and that is proven in this game. Second play of the game, Hassan Reddick comes off the edge and destroys Patrick Mahomes. And it just, right then and there, that was enough for me to say the Super Bowl was screwed. I mean, I'm not saying we got rigged, but the field was a problem, and it presented itself as more of a problem for the Eagles than it did the Chiefs. And that's just the reality of the situation. With that being said, the Chiefs' offense this year is not as good as it was last year. I'll say that. The Chiefs' defense is better than it was last year, and that's real life. That's facts right there as well. So the Eagles in this game, man, they did not look good in the first half at all. They were down by 10 at halftime. They just couldn't get anything going on offense, really. They were getting Jalen Hurts sacked almost every single play. It's like they were blitzing on first and second down. Consistently, they were bringing DBs in there to just muddy the vision for Jalen Hurts in the passing attack. And he had to hold the ball a little bit longer than he was expecting to, and then he would just get hit by a Chris Jones, a Trent McDuffie. The Kansas City defense was playing with their hair on fire in this one, and they made a lot of plays in this one, but the Eagles made some plays on defense as well. Patrick Mahomes and the offense were going in to score. Kevin Byard, a new addition from the trade deadline for the Eagles, from the Tennessee Titans, an former All-Pro, I should say. Picks off Patrick Mahomes in the end zone, which you don't see a whole lot of. An end zone intercept or red zone interception by Patrick Mahomes is hard to come by in this league. And Kevin Byard's played a lot of football against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, and he kind of knows what to expect there. And he made a huge play, which is exactly why you trade for a guy like that for a 5th and 6th round pick, which was absolutely just like a ham sandwich in the grand scheme of things. And then also a guy that we picked up just off the street in Bradley Roby makes another huge play in the red zone when the Chiefs were going to score in the second half. He punches out a ball from Travis Kelce to throw the ball to him, and he gets wrapped up, and then Peanut Tillman punches the ball out of his hands, and Nicholas Morrow recovers the football, and the Eagles go down and score and take the lead off of a very good pass by Jalen Hurts, just a dime. He drops on the sidelines over there. where he goes down the one, Devontae Smith goes down on the one there, and then from then on, I mean, if you're on the 1 yard line, you know what's coming. The tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it, it's the most unstoppable play in football, and it's legal. I don't care what anybody has to say about that. It is the reality. So yeah, Eagles get a huge win. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in this game when it comes to offensively, play calling for the Eagles. Bad drops on the other side of the football from Patrick Mahomes' weapons, Justin Watson, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who drops a wide open touchdown, potentially put the Chiefs up in the end of the game. I will say, though, it was a wet, rainy, windy day, in Kansas City, so it's not the easiest catch in the world to make, but it's one you have to make if you're a professional wide receiver in the league. But that's on the Kansas City Chiefs, man. They went out and they paid Marquez Valdes-Scantling in free agency, knowing that his superpower is speed and not necessarily catching. You can ask Aaron Rodgers how he feels about his hands, but that's just the way things go in the NFL. If you spend your money in other places like the O-line, which they had to do to protect Patrick Mahomes and the defense, then you can't spend it on the wide receiving core. And so that's just the way you have to construct NFL, offenses or NFL rosters in general, I should say. And that's just the way it is. The Eagles spent money at the wide receiver position, and Devontae Smith made a play at the end of the game to get them in position to win. And the Kansas City Chiefs weapons could not do the same. So that's just the way the cookie crumbles in the NFL, and the Eagles get a huge win, like I said, on the road against Andy Reid. Patrick Mahomes, the greatest player I've ever seen with my two eyes, as well as, like I said, Andy Reid coming off of a bye. He's basically I think he was 18-4 or 18-3 all time. Now he's 18-4 all time. So basically he was incredibly hard to beat coming off a bye in general, and the Eagles did it in their house, which is very, very impressive. And the Eagles move on to 9-1. Best record in all of football, best record in the NFC. They are the number 1 seed right now, and they are they still have a little bit of a gauntlet left on their schedule. They have the Bills upcoming, and then the San Francisco 49ers, and then the Dallas Cowboys again, and then the Seahawks. So things are not going to get much easier for the Eagles going forward. But I mean, after this win, I have confidence that they can beat pretty much anybody, anywhere, anytime, any weather situation, anything, any kind of ugly game, any kind of style of game you want. The Eagles find a way to win, and that's just how it is right now. That's pretty much it for the Week 11 recap. Let's go on to the Thanksgiving slate preview. We're going to start with the Packers at the Lions. The Lions are favored by 7.5 in this one. This is an interesting one. I mean, I think the Lions are definitely much better than the Packers right now. The Packers are playing much better as of late. Looks like Jordan Love's getting a little bit more comfortable in that offense, finding his playmakers in Jaden Reed and Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs all in this game for touchdowns. So the Packers are playing much better, but I don't think they're any kind of real contest for the Detroit Lions in this one. So I will take the Detroit Lions and the points at 7.5 right now. I think the Detroit Lions at home, the way Jared Goff has been playing at home in that offense, that defense, they're going to get after Jordan Love, and I think it's going to be a long day at the office for Jordan Love. Next game, we have Commanders at the Cowboys. Obviously, this is always in Jerry's world. But a Commanders team coming off a very bad loss against the Giants, who have swept them for the season. They're going to be probably a little bit pissed off, but I don't know how their morale is going to be in this one, considering they probably pretty much know their season's more or less over. I don't think they're going to have a real chance at a wild card in the NFC. So I don't know how they're going to fare in a game like this, where it's in Dallas. The Dallas feasts on the bad teams in the league, and I don't know if I would consider the Commanders a bad team right now, but they can have bad showings, which happened this past Sunday against the Giants. Obviously, they have good games where they play the Eagles and light them up, and Sam Howell looks like Steve Young. Crazy anomaly, but it is what it is. It just, matchups are everything in the NFL right now. But what I will say is I think I'm going to take the Cowboys, who are favored by 11 in this one, and I think I'm going to take them in the points. The Cowboys, like I said, feast on the weak. They feast on the lesser of the two teams, and I think they can pull away in this one, considering the Commanders. I think what's going to happen here is, the Cowboys are going to jump out to a lead because the Commanders' defense is just not what it used to be when they used to have Montez Sweat and Chase Young and those guys. And once the Cowboys gain a lead and you let that pass rush just pin their ears back and get after Sam Howell, who has pretty much been sacked the most in all of football, I think the Cowboys can really run away with this one. Next game, 49ers at Seahawks, and the Seahawks are underdogs by 7 points at home. Home dog, I understand that I like that in a lot of situations, but honestly right now I don't have any confidence, any real confidence in the Seahawks offense, especially with Geno Smith being a little bit banged up right now, especially in his throwing arm. That's just not something that bodes well for them. So I will take the 49ers and the points at 7. I think that's what I like in this one. I think the 49ers are going to keep rolling, even though they are. I saw a report where Talanoa Hufanga is going to be out for the season with a torn ACL, so that's unfortunate for them. But I think their defense is still good enough to really put it to the Seahawks offense, who has been struggling as of late. Now let's go on to the Black Friday preview. This is the Dolphins at the Jets. The Jets are 10-point underdogs in this one, and I'm going to take the Dolphins straight up with the points. Dolphins minus 10 doesn't matter. I think what's going to happen in this game is, even though we have the changing of the guard there at QB, Tim Boyle is going to take over. I don't think it's going to be much better on offense for them, and I think this Dolphins defense has been playing so much better as of late. I think they're going to take advantage of that. And at MetLife, I know there's probably going to be more injuries in this game because it's the MetLife turf and nobody likes to play there and everybody gets injured there. But what I will say about turf is everybody is much faster on turf, and I can just see the Dolphins' speed really just showing out in this game. Tyreek Hill just streaking down the field. Jalen Waddle streaking down the field, Raheem Mostert, all those guys. Just the speed of the Dolphins, I think, is going to be way too much for the Jets in this one, and I think the Dolphins will rout them in this game. That pretty much wraps it up for the Week 11 recap, as well as the Thanksgiving and Black Friday previews. I appreciate everybody watching and tuning in. Like I said, follow me on all of my socials. And hit that notification bell so you know when I post any kind of other content on here. And I appreciate you, like I said, once again, listening and tuning in. And I will talk to you after Thanksgiving. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Eat some turkey. I don't know how many people actually like that, but anyways, we'll see you next week.